Yes, drag me if that is in my clock too. What the devil's been going on in this house? So now Abel gets a big doubt. Firstly, slipper Henry was wearing, then the bureau is downstairs, and this Elizabeth and Ben Jordan have come, and then clock is also downstairs. Tell me what happened, he asks. And then Abel says, "Oh ho, so that's why you are all in black today. You thought I was dead. Mary, it's a good thing you brought that bureau downstairs, Amelia. It will be handier to carry it across with the Ringo bells on Monday." So he says, "Amelia, you did a very good job by bringing that bureau downstairs. As you brought it downstairs, it's easy for me to carry to my new house, because after marriage I'll be shifting. That is to Ringo bells. So when I..." Hello friends, today I am with the new video. The previous video we saw the unit 2 part A, Dear Departed. In this video, let us have a line by line understanding about the unit 2 part B, Dear Departed part 2. Okay, so already we have seen that it is in the pattern of a play or a skit. Now let's continue with the same skit or play or drama also you can say. Okay, Dear Departed part 2. So far we saw that Amelia had mistaken Abel to be dead, and she informed her sister Elizabeth Jordan about it. Elizabeth Jordan and Ben Jordan had come to Amelia's house, and all these people, Henry Slater, Amelia Slater, Ben Jordan and Elizabeth Jordan, were all discussing about the property of Abel. And all of a sudden, when they want to check whether he had paid the premium of the insurance or not, they want to check, so they send Victoria to get the keys of the bureau. That time Abel comes down alive. They think that it is the ghost of Abel Merriweather. Now let's see what happens. Okay, what's the matter with little Vicky, asks Abel. He sees Ben and Mrs. Jordan. Hello, what brings you here? How's yourself, Ben? Here we see Abel is surprised to see Ben and Elizabeth Jordan. So he asks, what's the matter? Why you both are here? You didn't come here for a long time. What brings you here? He asks. And then Abel thrusts his hand on Ben, who skips back smartly and retreats with Mrs. Jordan to a safe distance below the sofa. So as Abel tries to touch Ben, Ben thinks that he is the ghost of Abel, and he goes back, tries to escape. Yeah. Then Mrs. Slater says, that is, she approaches Abel gingerly, means in a very soft way she tries to approach Abel, and she says, "Father, is that you?" And she too is wondering whether he is the ghost or real Abel Merriweather. So what she does is she pokes him with her hand to see if he is solid. So she wants to check whether he is a ghost or real Abel Merriweather. And then what happens? Abel says, "Of course, it's me. Don't do that, Amelia. What the devil do you mean by this tomfoolery?" So Abel is a little bit shocked to see them react like that, because he doesn't know that they have mistaken him to be dead. And Mrs. Jordan says, "You took us by surprise, Father. Are you keeping quite well?" Then Abel says, what? What is that?" He's trying to catch the words. Catch the words means understand what she is telling. And then Mrs. Jordan says, "Are you quite well?" And then Abel says, I'm right enough, but for a bit of a headache." And then he looks at Amelia and says, "Amelia, what the dickens did I do with my new slippers?" He is asking where his slippers are. Then Mrs. Slater, confused, she is a little bit confused because she has given those slippers to Henry. Okay, so he says, aren't they by the hearth, father? Hearth means the fireplace. That is, in foreign countries, generally the climate is very cold. So they keep a fireplace where they keep the fire to keep the room a little bit warm. That is the hearth. She says that it is near the hearth. And Abel says, I don't see them. And then he looks at Henry trying to remove the slippers. And then, why have you got them on, Henry? So he's wondering why Henry is wearing his slippers. What's the matter? He is thinking. Then Mrs. Slater says, I told him to put them on to stretch them. They were that new and hard. Now Henry, so she's trying to cover up. She's trying to manage the situation, telling that she only asked Henry to wear them so that it will stretch. Then Mrs. Slater snatches the slippers from Henry and gives them to Abel, who puts them on and sits in the armchair. Mrs. Jordan says to Ben, well, I don't call that delicate, stepping into a dead man's shoes in such haste. So now Elizabeth Jordan could understand what was happening there. She could understand that Amelia Slater has tried to pinch the new slippers of Abel Merriweather. And then Victoria runs across to Abel and sits on the floor at his feet. And then Victoria says, oh Grandpa, I am so glad you are not dead. So if you see in the entire story, it is only Victoria who likes Grandpa. That is Abel Merriweather. So she says that she is very happy that Abel is alive. She says, you are not dead. And then Mrs. Slater says, hold your tongue, Victoria. And now what happened? She's telling the truth. She's a small child. She doesn't know to hide. So she's telling that she is happy that he's not dead. And Victoria tries to again manage the situation. She says, hold your tongue. What are you talking, Victoria? Like that. She is trying to threaten Victoria, trying to make her shut her mouth. And then Abel says, who's gone dead? Hey, what's it? He says. And then Mrs. Slater says, Victoria says she's sorry about your head. Now she found a new rhyming word, that is headache he had, isn't it? So for dead rhymes with head. So she says, it's not that you are dead, it is your head. That is your headache she's telling about, she says. And then Abel says, thank you, Vicky. I am feeling better. Vicky means Victoria. Pet name of Victoria. Okay, so he says, Vicky, I am feeling better. Then Abel says, why Ben, you are in mourning? Mourning means black dress. Why are you in black dress, he asks. And Lizzie too. Lizzie means Elizabeth. And Lizzie too. And Amelia and Henry and little Vicky. Who's gone dead? It's someone in the family. He's asking why they are all in black dress. Actually, they are wearing black dress because they thought that Abel was dead. Now Abel himself is asking, why are you all wearing black dress? And then Mrs. Slater says, no one you know, father, a relation of Ben's. And Amelia Slater doesn't know what to tell. She pushes it on Ben. She says that one of the relative of Ben has died. Then Abel says, and what relation of Ben's? Now Abel is not aware, okay, of that situation. So he is asking who has died and all. And Mrs. Slater says his brother. And then Ben says, damn it, I never had one. Actually, Ben never had a brother. And Amelia Slater says that his brother has died. Now he doesn't know what to say. And then Abel says, dear, dear. And what was his name? Ben. And he is trying to inquire so much about that person. But actually, that person doesn't exist at all. It is just a made up story. Then Ben says, that means he is trying to recollect some name and tell. Then Mrs. Slater says one name, Frederick. And Mrs. Jordan says Albert. And Ben has one more name in his mind. So what he says, Fred, Alb, Isaac, all this put together, he tells one name. Then Abel says, Isaac? And where did your brother Isaac die? Still, he is going still deep into the enquiry. So he says, where did your brother die at all? Then Ben says, in Australia. Then Abel says, well, I suppose you have only been waiting for me to begin tea. I am feeling hungry. So he sees a teapot ready. Everyone sitting there on the table for tea. So he says, oh, that's nice that you have prepared tea. Okay, let's have tea. I have already come. Let's have tea, he says. And then Mrs. Slater says, I'll make tea. Then Abel says, come along, now sit you down and let's be jolly. Let's be jolly means let's have a good time. Come on, all of you, sit. We will have, after such a long time, the whole family has come together. Let's all have nice time, he says. Then Abel says, "I, Amelia and Henry, what the devil did you mean by shifting my bureau out of my bedroom?" And Henry and Mrs. Slater are speechless. "Do you hear me, Henry? Amelia?" Now all of a sudden he looks at the bureau and he says, "What happened? Why my bureau is downstairs?" He starts questioning. Henry and Amelia Slater cannot answer because they tried to pinch it. They tried to steal it from his room. And then Mrs. Jordan says, "What bureau was that, father?" Then Abel says, "Why, my bureau, the one I bought." He says, "That is my bureau which I bought. That is what I am asking about." And then Mrs. Jordan says, "Was it the one, father?" And Abel says, "Oh, that's it. What's it doing there?" And then at the same time the clock on the mantelpiece strikes 6. Now look, already they are caught for the bureau, and that timing only, look at that bad timing of Amelia Slater. At that particular moment only the clock also strikes 6, and Abel looks at the clock naturally and he says that the clock is also his. "Drat me if that is in my clock too. What the devil's been going on in this house?" So now Abel gets a big doubt. Firstly, his slipper Henry was wearing, then the bureau is downstairs, and this Elizabeth and Ben Jordan have come, and then clock is also downstairs. "Tell me what happened," he asks. And then Ben says, "Well, I'll be hanged, miss. I can't say this. It's a very big mystery that which I have to tell," like that he says. And then Mrs. Jordan says, "I'll tell you what's been going on in this house, father. Nothing short of robbery." Then Mrs. Slater says, "Be quiet, Elizabeth." So Elizabeth wants to tell everything out that Amelia has tried to steal all his things and all, because she thought that he was dead. Okay, and then Slater is trying to make her silent, but Elizabeth is not listening. Mrs. Jordan, that is Elizabeth Jordan, says, "I'll not be quiet. Oh, I call it double-faced. Double-faced means hypocrisy. Once in front of Abel they are acting to be very loving and affectionate, but at the back of him they do not like him. That is Amelia Slater. She is only bothered about his property. That is what is called double-faced. Yeah. And then Henry says, now, Elizabeth." And then Mrs. Jordan says, "And you too. Are you such a poor creature that you must do every dirty thing she tells you?" So again now Elizabeth Jordan is on her terms. Now she got her time and power. So what she says, "What is this, Henry? She told to wear slipper and you are wearing it. She told to lift the bureau, that also you are lifting. What type of man are you?" Like that she is trying to tell Henry. Says a bit of scolding sort of thing. And then Abel says, "Damn it all. Will someone tell me what's been going on?" Now Abel asks, "What's going on? Please explain it to me." Then Mrs. Jordan tells the whole story. "Yes, I will. I'll not see you robbed." And then Abel says, "Who's been robbing me?" Then Mrs. Jordan says, "Amelia and Henry. They have stolen your clock and bureau. They sneaked into your room like thieves in the night and stole them after you were dead." So it says it's none other than Amelia Slater and Henry Slater. They came into your room once you were dead and they took your clock, they took your bureau and all this. Sneaked means come without anyone's knowledge, just going inside. Okay, and then Henry and Mrs. Slater says, "Hush, quiet, Elizabeth." And Mrs. Jordan says, "I'll not be stopped. After you were dead, I say." Now Elizabeth is not ready to keep quiet. She wants to tell the entire thing. Okay, and then Abel says, "After who was dead?" Then Mrs. Jordan says, "You." Then Abel says, "But I'm not dead." Then Mrs. Jordan says, "No, but they thought you were." And then Abel gazes round at them. Gazes means looking at them. Okay, for a while, the same place. If you look at the same place for a long time, that's called gazing. Okay, and then Abel says, "Oh ho, so that's why you are all in black today. You thought I was dead. That was a big mistake." He sits and resumes history. Now he understands the entire story, what's been going on over there. He understands. And then Mrs. Slater says, "Father." And then Abel says, "It didn't take you long to start dividing my things between you. I'll tell you what I am going to do. Since your mother died, I have lived part of the time with you, Amelia, and part with you, Lizzie. Well, I shall make a new will." New will means in paper. in a bond paper, they write down what to whom the property will belong after they are dead. That is called the will. In Telugu we call will nama. That is the will. So he is telling, after your mother died, I have lived little while with Amelia and little while with Lizzie. Lizzie means Elizabeth. But now I am going to make a new will, leaving all my bits of things to whoever I am living with when I die. How does that strike you? Now he says that I am not going to divide my property equally among both of you. I will give to only one person. Which person? With whom I live when I die. At my last moment, wherever I am living, to that person I will give the whole property, he says. Okay. And then Mrs. Jordan says, you know, father, it's quite time you came to live with us again. We would make you live very comfortably. Now look at this Elizabeth Jordan. She wants the property of Abel. So she says, Daddy, you come and live with us. How many years you didn't live with us? She says. And Mrs. Slater says, no, he's not been with us as long as he was with you. Now we know he was with Elizabeth Jordan for 5 years and with Amelia Slater only 3 years. So she says, no, Daddy should be with us only. Is it love and affection? No, they are greedy about the money. They want the property. Okay, so she says, Daddy should live with us only, she says. And then Mrs. Jordan says, I may be wrong, but I don't think father will fancy living on with you after what's happened today. So she says, Elizabeth says, I don't think he is going to live with you after seeing what all you did with his things, how you stole his things and all. Then Abel says, it seems to be that neither of you has any cause to feel proud about the way you have treated me. He says, none of you has the eligibility. Neither were you good nor were you good. Neither was Amelia loving and affectionate towards him, nor was Elizabeth Jordan affectionate to him. So he says, nobody has the eligibility to make me stay with you. Then what he says? Mrs. Slater says, if I have done anything wrong, I'm sure I'm sorry for it. So she apologizes. She is saying, sorry Daddy, I'm sorry if I did something wrong. Please stay with me, she says. And Mrs. Jordan says, and I can't say more than that too. I mean, I am also sorry if I did any mistake, she says. Then Abel says, it's a bit late to say it now. Neither of you care to put up with me. So Abel says, no, it's too late. I am not going to live with any of you. Then Mrs. Slater and Mrs. Jordan, no, father. They are trying to convince him to live with either of them. Then Abel says, you both say that because of what I have told you about leaving money. So he says, you both want me to live with you because I told that I'll give the property to the person with whom I live. Well, since you don't want me, I'll go to someone that does. So he says, you both don't care about me, you feel me as a burden. So I'll go to a person who will think me as a pleasure, who would love me and who would be good to me. I will go to that person, he says. And then Ben says, come Mr. Merriweather, you have got to live with one of your daughters. Now his son-in-law, that is Ben Jordan, is telling, what is this Abel Merriweather? You have to live either with Amelia or Elizabeth, he says. Then Abel says, I'll tell you what I got to do. On Monday next, I got to do 3 things. Now Abel says his decision. What are the 3 things that he is going to do? I got to go to the lawyer and alter my will. First he is going to change his will. In his will he is going to write that the property won't belong to both the daughters. It will belong to the person with whom he will live. At this last moment. Alter means change. Okay, and I got to go to the insurance office and pay my premium. Second thing, I have to go and pay the premium of the insurance. Then only if I die, the person who takes care of me will get the money. And then thirdly, what he is going to do is, I got to go to St. Philip's Church and get married. Third is the shocking news. He says that he is going to get married. And then Ben and Henry says, what? They are all very shocked. And Mrs. Jordan says, get married? And then Mrs. Slater says, he is out of his senses. That means he got mad. He is out of his senses. Means he has lost his senses. He is got mentally retarded. Like that she says. Then Abel says, I say I am going to get married. Then Mrs. Slater says, who to? Whom are you going to get married at this old age? Then Abel says, to Mrs. John Shorrocks, who keeps the Ringo bells. We have had it fixed up a good while now, but I was keeping it for a pleasant surprise. I feel I was a bit of a burden to you, so I found someone who would think it as a pleasure to look after me. We shall be very glad to see you at the ceremony. So what is Abel telling? He is going to get married to John Shorrocks. He is going to marry John Shorrocks, and then John Shorrocks keeps the Ringo Bells. It's a restaurant, okay. And then he says, "You both found me as a burden, so I found someone who would like to care about me. We shall be very glad to see you at the ceremony." What ceremony? Marriage ceremony. He is calling his daughters for the marriage. And then till Monday, then 12 o'clock at St. Philip's Church. He says, by 12 o'clock at St. Philip's Church, I am going to get married. It's a good thing you brought that bureau downstairs, Amelia. It will be handier to carry it across to the Ringo Bells on Monday. So he says, Amelia, you did a very good job by bringing that bureau downstairs. As you have brought it downstairs, it's easy for me to carry to my new house, because after marriage I will be shifting. That is to Ringo Bells. So when I am shifting all my things, it will be easy for me to carry the bureau. Thank you, Amelia, he says. So that is all about Dear Departed Part 2. So we didn't expect such a twist in this story, is it not? So that is a humor in the story. Yeah. So now look, you have so many creative writing. The one may be the interview. I have already put the playlist. Go to our channel, click the playlist. There you have 10th class unit 2. In that you have some creative writings which were given in the previous year question papers. Okay. So one is interview of Abel Merriweather. Another one is a diary entry of Victoria, how Victoria felt after she realized that her grandpa was dead, how lonely she was feeling, how sad she was feeling. Another one is diary entry of Amelia Slater, regretting for ill-treating her father. She should have treated her father with love and affection. Now, in that case, he would never have gone to John Shorrocks. So, regretting about her behavior, how would Amelia have felt? That diary entry is also there. And another one is a reporter making an interview of Abel Merriweather. Why he is getting married at this old age? Generally, old age people do not get married. It's a little very strange, and it's very strange to even hear, right? So, a reporter is taking an interview of Abel Merriweather. So, how would be that conversation? What would be the dialogues in that? I have already prepared it and posted it in that playlist. Just go and once refer it, you'll get an idea how to attempt an interview. Okay. So I think this session you could understand the meaning of Dear Departed too, and then you might have friends who are a little bit finding it difficult to understand. Moreover, I have posted the question tags grammar video. One by one I'll post the active and passive voice of the grammar part. So to keep in touch with our channel, kindly click the bell icon so that you will get the notification and you can immediately get updated with the new videos. And like the video, it will be very helpful to us. And then if you subscribe our channel, you will get regular notifications of the videos which we are uploading. Okay. And I have already told you I am just starting with the intermediate English textbook. If you have any friends in the intermediate level, please ask them also to subscribe. So see you again in the next video. Till then, take care. Bye bye.